Sad news. Bing Crosby died today while playing golf near Madrid, Spain. He was 73. He collapsed on the course, was rushed to the hospital, but was pronounced dead on arrival.
It's almost impossible to discuss the music of the 1940s and 1950s without bringing up Bing Crosby. His voice was everywhere, his influence undeniable, and his legacy shaped the industry for generations. He wasn't just a singer. He was a cultural phenomenon setting the standard for musicians, actors, and entertainers alike. But behind all the glitz and glamour, beyond the chart-topping hits and blockbuster films, Bing Crosby's personal life was anything but picture-perfect. His charm and effortless stage presence masked a far more painful reality, one filled with family struggles, dark secrets, and heartbreaking tragedies. The most devastating of all? 2 of his sons took their own lives, leaving behind a haunting mystery. What led them down such a tragic path? And what shocking revelation from Bing Crosby himself might hold the key to understanding it all? To unravel this sorrowful story, we need to go back and examine Bing Crosby's life from the beginning. Hollywood has always been skilled at crafting illusions, making even the most troubled lives seem like fairy tales. But reality is often far more complicated. For Bing, success came easily on stage and screen, but behind closed doors, his private life told a very different story. One filled with pressure, expectations, and a family history that would ultimately cast a long and painful shadow. So what exactly did he admit to? And how do his son's tragic fates fit into this complicated family saga? Bing Crosby's journey began long before the spotlight found him. Born Harry Lillis Crosby Jr. on May 3, 1903 in Tacoma, Washington, he was destined to leave an indelible mark on the entertainment world. But before he became a household name, he was just a boy growing up in a working-class family with big dreams and an even bigger voice. His father, Harry Lowe Crosby, was an English-born bookkeeper, while his mother, Catherine Harrigan, was the daughter of an Irish builder from County Mayo. Together, they raised 7 children, with Bing being the 4th in line. The Crosbys weren't wealthy, but they were resourceful. In fact, the house Bing grew up in was built by his own father, a reflection of the family's determination and resilience. In 1906, when Bing was just a toddler, the Crosby family packed up and moved to Spokane, Washington in search of better opportunities. It was there that young Harry Lillis Crosby found himself enamored with a humorous newspaper column called the Bingville Bugle. He became so obsessed with it that a neighborhood friend started calling him Bingo. Over time, the nickname was shortened, and just like that, the world would come to know him simply as Bing. By 1917, the entertainment bug had already bitten. That summer, Bing took a job as a prop boy at Spokane's auditorium, where he had the chance to watch legendary performers like Al Jolson take the stage. Even though he later downplayed its significance, this experience planted the seed of his future stardom. While he would eventually become one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century, at the time, he was just a starry-eyed boy watching and learning, unknowingly preparing for the day he'd become a legend himself. Bing's passion for music was ingrained in him from an early age. When he was just 3 years old, his family briefly left Spokane for a small mining and lumber town, where music played a central role in their home. His father owned one of the very first record players in town, filling their house with the sounds of popular artists of the era. Bing grew up listening to the likes of Al Jolson and other musical greats, unknowingly shaping his own style long before he ever stepped in front of a microphone. By the time he enrolled at Gonzaga University, he had already begun making a name for himself, laying the foundation for what would soon become an unparalleled career in entertainment. At Gonzaga University, Bing Crosby wasn't just another student. He threw himself into every opportunity that came his way, excelling in sports, public speaking, and debate, all while adhering to the rigorous discipline of his Jesuit education. Even in his early years, his love for words, performance, and the spotlight was undeniable. While his family had high hopes for him in law school, Bing quickly realized that a career in law wasn't where his true passion lay. The idea of spending years behind books and legal briefs couldn't compete with his growing love for music and entertainment. It wasn't long before he abandoned his studies entirely, teaming up with pianist Al Rinker to chase his dream of making it big in the music industry. The path to stardom, however, was anything but smooth. In the early days, Bing developed a bit of a reputation for being unreliable. His charm and natural talent were undeniable, but so was his love for the fast-paced, jazz-filled nightlife of the Roaring Twenties. While his dedication wavered at times, his raw talent always managed to shine through. One of the most important friendships of his career was with Bob Hope, a fellow entertainer who would become both a comedic partner and a lifelong friend. Despite the inevitable competition that came with working in Hollywood, their bond endured, leading to the creation of the legendary Road to Film series. By 1926, Bing was performing at the Los Angeles Metropolitan Theater, steadily gaining recognition and proving that he had what it took to make it in the entertainment industry. It wasn't long before Crosby caught the attention of Paul Whiteman, one of the most influential band leaders of the time. Whiteman, known for his ability to spot emerging talent, saw something special in Bing and offered him a chance to perform on a bigger stage. Along with his longtime singing partner, Al Rinker, whom he had been performing with since their Spokane days, Bing made his debut at Chicago's Tivoli Theater on December 6, 1926. The duo quickly found themselves on the rise, earning a weekly salary of $150, a significant sum at the time. Their growing popularity led Whiteman to introduce a third member to their act, pianist and aspiring lyricist Harry Barris. With this addition, the Rhythm Boys were born, creating a harmonious blend of jazz vocals and energetic performances that captivated audiences. As the Rhythm Boys toured and performed, they shared the stage with some of the biggest names in jazz and swing. Mildred Bailey, Hoagy Carmichael, Eddie Lang, Jack Teagarden, Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, and Bix Beiderbecke were just a few of the musical legends they worked alongside. By 1928, Bing Crosby had already made a significant mark on the music scene, scoring his first #1 hit with a jazz-influenced rendition of Old Man River. His deep, smooth voice and effortless stage presence made him the standout member of the trio, and it wasn't long before he began to overshadow his bandmates. Despite their success, tensions within the Rhythm Boys started to rise, particularly in their relationship with Whiteman. The group felt stifled under his leadership, longing for more creative control over their performances. Frustrated with their lack of freedom, they eventually decided to part ways with Whiteman, opting instead to join the Gus Arnheim Orchestra. It was during this time that Crosby's star power became impossible to ignore. Once he secured a recording deal with Brunswick Records, it became clear that he was the one audiences were drawn to. While the Rhythm Boys had been a strong unit, the reality was that Crosby was becoming a solo sensation in his own right. As his individual fame grew, the tensions within the group became unavoidable. The final breaking point came when Crosby's growing success overshadowed his bandmates entirely, leading to the group's eventual breakup. From that moment on, there was no turning back. Bing Crosby was officially a solo act. His recordings of At Your Command, I Surrender Dear, and Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams, some of which were written by his former bandmate Harry Barris, became major hits, solidifying his place as a rising star in the music world. By the 1930s, Crosby was one of America's most famous vocalists. In 1931 alone, he had 10 of the top 50 songs, whether solo or in collaboration with others. His big screen debut in The Big Broadcast, 1932, cemented his Hollywood presence, and by 1939, he had signed long-term contracts with Decca Records and Jack Kapp's new record company. Around this time, he also began making waves in radio. He first performed as a solo artist on CBS with the Carl Fenton Orchestra, later taking over from his former boss, Paul Whiteman, as the host of NBC's Kraft Music Hall in 1936, a role he held for the next decade. Crosby's influence reached far beyond his own performances. Legendary singers like Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, Dean Martin, Dick Haymes, John Lennon, and Elvis Presley all credited him as an inspiration. During World War II, Yank magazine named him the person most responsible for boosting the morale of American troops overseas. In 1948, he was voted the most admired man in the United States, ranking above figures like Jackie Robinson and even Pope Pius X. That same year, Music Digest reported that Crosby's recordings accounted for more than half of the 80,000 hours of recorded music played on American radio each week. Never one to settle, Crosby was always pushing for better sound quality and recordings. He saw the potential in German tape recorders and funded Ampex to develop the Ampex 200, the first tape recorder made in the United States. This revolutionized the music industry, allowing for easier editing and overdubbing, something artists like Les Paul were thrilled about. But his impact wasn't just technological. His masterful use of the microphone changed the way performers connected with audiences. His deep, warm baritone and his careful attention to lyrics captivated listeners worldwide. His ability to seamlessly transition between radio, film, and live performances played a huge role in his lasting success. Despite all the fame and achievements, Crosby's personal life was far more complicated. He struggled with issues like drinking and family tensions. His marriage to Dixie Lee and his relationship with their children were often turbulent, with conflicting accounts about his parenting style. When Dixie passed away, it only deepened the complexities of his family dynamics. Behind the smooth voice and effortless charm was a man grappling with personal demons, a side of his story often overshadowed by his professional triumphs. Losing Dixie Lee in 1952 was a devastating blow for Crosby, leaving a lasting scar on both his personal life and career. No matter what challenges he faced behind the scenes, his artistic and technological influence on the entertainment world will never be forgotten. Millions around the world were touched by his voice, his films, and his larger-than-life presence. Yet, for someone so famous, he remained something of a mystery. Even those closest to him, like Phil Harris, admitted they never really knew him completely. While his public image was well-crafted, his personal struggles were another story altogether. His role in The Country Girl proved he had more to offer than just smooth vocals and charm. Playing the troubled actor Frank Elgin was a major leap for Crosby. And although producers had their doubts, he delivered a performance that silenced critics and earned him widespread acclaim. His voice, already legendary, became even more powerful during World War II, thanks to his version of White Christmas, which brought comfort and nostalgia to millions of soldiers and families alike. Beyond show business, he had a deep love for baseball and horse racing, and he made a lasting impact as a philanthropist, leaving a generous donation to Gonzaga University. But despite all the success, Crosby's role as a father was far from perfect. His children, Dennis, Lindsay, and Gary, grew up in the dazzling world of Hollywood, but their lives were filled with struggles. Fame and fortune didn't shield them from personal battles, and all three faced their own demons, from substance abuse to fractured family relationships. Their stories reveal just how difficult it was to grow up under the shadow of such an enormous legacy. Lindsay Crosby, born on January 5, 1934 in Los Angeles, was one of Bing and Dixie's 4 children. While he never reached the same level of fame as his father, he carried the enormous burden of living up to the Crosby name. Along with his siblings, Mary Frances and Gary, Lindsay had a privileged upbringing. Thanks to his father's legendary career in film and music, the Crosby family lived comfortably, but that didn't mean life was easy. As he grew older, Lindsay tried to carve out his own path in entertainment, much like his father. He appeared in films like The Big Night, 1951, and The Star and the Story, 1955. But his career never reached the heights of Bing's. His biggest battles weren't on a stage or in front of a camera, they were within himself. Alcoholism and substance abuse were major struggles, not just for Lindsay, but for several members of the Crosby family. Sadly, on December 11, 1989, at the age of 51, Lindsay Crosby took his own life. His death was a heartbreaking reminder of the immense pressure he had carried throughout his life. Dennis Crosby, another son of Bing and Dixie, also faced a life shaped by both privilege and pain. Born on July 13, 1934 in Los Angeles, Dennis was part of a family that had become an entertainment dynasty. Just like his brothers, he grew up in a world where his father wasn't just a famous entertainer, he was an icon. Gary Crosby's childhood was one of immense privilege, filled with all the advantages that came with being the son of a Hollywood legend. He grew up in an environment where fame and fortune were a given, with access to the finest education, luxurious homes, and a lifestyle most could only dream of. But along with that privilege came an enormous burden, the expectation to live up to the incredible legacy his father had built. Growing up alongside his siblings Lindsay, Philip, and Dennis, Gary was constantly reminded of the towering shadow cast by Bing Crosby's success. Every step he took in his career was met with comparisons to his father, making it difficult to establish his own unique identity. Determined to prove himself, Gary worked tirelessly to hone his craft, refining his singing and acting abilities to step into the entertainment world on his own terms. His vocal performances first gained recognition on The Bing Crosby Show, where audiences took notice of his smooth voice and natural stage presence. However, even with undeniable talent, he struggled to emerge from his father's overwhelming influence. Every opportunity seemed to come with the unspoken expectation that he would match Bing's greatness, a standard that was nearly impossible to meet. While music and acting were central to his career, what truly distinguished Gary was his dedication to social justice. At a time when discrimination and inequality were prevalent, he didn't just focus on personal success. He used his platform to fight for change. Whether through his performances, public appearances, or outspoken views, he was not one to remain silent in the face of injustice. He believed in using his influence for a greater purpose, advocating for those whose voices weren't heard. His stage charisma and vocal talent made him a captivating performer, but his passion for a better world left an even deeper impression on those who followed his work. Meanwhile, his father, Bing Crosby, was making history in the entertainment industry, continuously pushing the boundaries of radio and music. His impact extended far beyond his own recordings. He was a pioneer who reshaped the way people consumed entertainment. In 1941, just before the U.S. entered World War II, he gave a speech to high school students, urging them to recognize the importance of their contributions to society. This moment reflected not just his fame, but his deep sense of duty and hope for the future. By 1946, he had reached the pinnacle of radio success, but that wasn't enough for him. He wanted more. When NBC refused to allow pre-recorded broadcasts, Bing found a way around their restrictions. Instead of conforming, he moved to ABC, a network that was willing to support his innovative vision. His decision forever changed radio, shifting the industry from live programming to pre-recorded shows, and setting a precedent that countless entertainers would later follow. While Bing was revolutionizing entertainment, his children were navigating their own struggles. Gary, much like his brothers, felt the immense weight of growing up as the son of a superstar. The pressures of the Crosby name were inescapable, shaping both his professional and personal life in ways that were often overwhelming. He had moments of triumph, winning over audiences with his performances and building a career that many would consider successful. However, the constant comparisons to his father made it difficult for him to truly step out on his own. No matter how much he achieved, the world always seemed to see him as Bing Crosby's son, rather than as Gary Crosby, the artist in his own right. Even as he found success in music and worked passionately for social causes, the burden of his father's towering legacy was something he carried throughout his life. Despite ABC's shaky reputation, Crosby's move gave the network a major boost, transforming it from a small competitor into a real player in the industry. Live radio began losing ground to pre-recorded broadcasts, as more and more celebrities followed his lead. Gary Crosby, meanwhile, made his big-screen debut in Mr. Corey in 1957, though his acting career had already been developing with roles in films like The Big Night, 1951, and The Night the World Exploded, 1957. He also made guest appearances on hit TV shows such as Playhouse 90 and Alfred Hitchcock Presents, but despite his efforts, he struggled to establish himself as a standout performer. Following in his father's musical footsteps, Gary pursued a career as a singer, releasing songs and albums, but he never quite reached the level of superstardom Bing had achieved. One of his biggest personal challenges was his strained relationship with his father, which he later revealed in Going My Own Way, a book published in 1983. In it, he described the severe punishment, neglect, and cruelty that he and his siblings endured at the hands of their parents. The memoir offered a stark contrast to Bing Crosby's warm public persona, exposing a much darker side of the beloved entertainer. Although Gary never achieved the same level of fame or success as his father, he still left his mark on the entertainment industry, contributing to the lasting legacy of the Crosby family. His brutally honest account shed new light on Bing Crosby's home life, revealing the complexities of their family dynamic. Tragically, Gary Crosby's life was cut short when he passed away on August 24, 1995, at the age of 62. The most unsettling parts of his memoir describe the physical and emotional abuse he and his brothers, Philip, Dennis, and Lindsay, suffered at the hands of their father. Gary detailed the painful experiences of being beaten with a belt and enduring psychological torment, a reality that sharply contrasted with Bing Crosby's affable and charming public image. For decades, fans had only seen the polished, charismatic entertainer, but Gary's revelations painted a very different picture. Beyond the abuse, Gary also opened up about his father's drinking, suggesting that Bing's alcoholism played a significant role in the fractured relationships within the family. The emotional distance between father and son was something Gary felt deeply, describing how Bing's devotion to his career often left him feeling abandoned and ignored. He wrote about the noticeable emotional gap between them, which only widened as the years passed. Dennis and Lindsay Crosby also struggled with addiction and personal demons, and Gary documented their battles in detail. His memoir not only explored his own pain, but also revealed the deeper struggles within the Crosby family. Though much of the book focused on his own experiences and his troubled relationship with his father, it ultimately painted a broader picture of a family grappling with the pressures of fame, addiction, and emotional turmoil. Philip Crosby's story wasn't just about his career in entertainment. It also reflected his personal ambitions and struggles. Like his siblings, he tried to carve out a name for himself as a singer and actor, but living in the shadow of a father as famous as Bing Crosby made it an uphill battle. While Gary Crosby openly expressed his frustrations about growing up under their father's influence, not all of his brothers shared the same perspective. Dennis, Philip's twin, referred to Gary's book as Gary's company and acknowledged his brother's anger, though he never directly refuted the claims. Their youngest brother, Lindsay, fully supported Gary's account, relieved that the book had finally challenged long-standing myths and misconceptions about their family. However, Lindsay's support was unexpected. Among the four brothers, he was often regarded as Bing's favorite. Gary's revelations stirred strong reactions beyond his immediate family. Bandleader Bob Crosby, Bing's younger brother, was among those who defended him, insisting that he never witnessed any physical mistreatment. Despite the public controversy, Philip Crosby's life followed a different trajectory. Born Philip Lang Crosby on July 13, 1934 in Los Angeles, he was the firstborn son of Bing Crosby and his first wife, Dixie Lee. As the eldest, he carried the weight of being the first in line to follow in their father's footsteps. His family included his three younger brothers, Dennis, Lindsay, and Gary, as well as three half-siblings, Harry, Mary Frances, and Nathaniel, from Bing's second marriage to Catherine Grant. Like his father, Philip pursued a career in entertainment, but while he found work in the industry, he never reached the same level of fame. He appeared in several films, including a role as a younger version of Jim Hardy in Holiday Inn, 1942, a character originally played by his father. Though he also made guest appearances on television, he never quite stepped out from under his father's shadow. On occasion, he and Bing even shared the stage, a testament to their complicated but enduring bond. However, entertainment wasn't Philip's only interest. Throughout his life, he explored multiple career paths, working as both a stockbroker and a Marine. His diverse pursuits reflected a man who never settled for just one thing. Despite his efforts to establish his own identity, Philip faced many personal struggles, particularly with alcohol. He was married 4 times, 3 of his wives being showgirls from Las Vegas. His battles with alcoholism led to multiple arrests for drunk driving, despite his attempts to stay sober through Alcoholics Anonymous. In a 1983 interview with People magazine, Philip admitted that it had been a full year since his last performance, marking the end of his time in the spotlight. His final public appearance took place at a Burbank Elks Club party, a far cry from the glamorous Hollywood stages his father once commanded. Though his connection to show business remained through family ties, his own career never quite lived up to the legacy of the Crosby name. His personal life was marked by ups and downs, and despite his efforts to overcome his demons, his struggles took a toll. Like many members of the Crosby family, he dealt with alcoholism and other personal challenges throughout his life. These difficulties inevitably impacted both his professional and personal life. On January 13, 2004, Philip Crosby passed away at the age of 69. His death was yet another heartbreaking loss for the family, a reminder of the challenges faced by the children of one of Hollywood's biggest icons. The weight of being Bing Crosby's children had long-lasting effects on all of them. In a 1959 interview, Bing himself admitted to feeling guilty about his parenting. He openly stated that he did not believe he had been a good father. He reflected on his mistakes, acknowledging that he had showered his children with financial privilege while also demanding excessive discipline and labor from them. Most notably, he regretted not giving them enough of his time and attention. Bing even went so far as to say that he and their mother, Dixie, had tried their hardest to raise them well. Lindsey Crosby, despite later struggling with his own demons, stood by his father at the time. He defended Bing, insisting that his father found it difficult to cope with the feeling that he had let them down. However, reading those words from his father in an interview was deeply distressing for Lindsey. When Bing explained that he only wanted to give his children the same strong foundation his own father had given him, it became clear just how conflicted he was about his parenting. His admission was raw and revealing, an acknowledgement that his best intentions may not have been enough. Bing Crosby passed away on October 14, 1977, at the age of 73, leaving behind a complicated legacy. The years that followed were filled with even more tragedy. In 1989, Lindsey Crosby died by suicide, and just 2 years later, in 1991, Dennis Crosby did the same. In 1995, Gary Crosby succumbed to complications from lung cancer. One by one, the Crosby brothers faded, their lives marked by both privilege and pain. Their stories serve as a stark reminder that fame and fortune do not always lead to happiness, and that even the brightest stars can cast long shadows.